Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda and today I have for you a book unhaul. So I did do an unhaul of my Goodreads want to read list a couple weeks ago, and some of these books were on that list, but a couple of them are books that I have read, and just kind of going through my shelves and looking at what I want to read for the year. A couple of them I have read and I just didn't like enough that I want to keep on my shelves, and some of them I just decided that I'm not going to get to. So I think it's probably split pretty evenly between books that I read and haven't read. And then just in no particular order, I'm going to go through them. It's basically from smallest to largest because that's how I just took my thumbnail and I don't feel like rearranging them. So one of the books I read was The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. This is the movie tie-in cover, and I read this quite some time ago. I remember enjoying it when I did read it. I just don't think I'm ever going to reread this story. I haven't seen the movie yet, and I think, doesn't it have Saoirse Ronan in it? It might. I really like her though. So I think if I do revisit this story, I want to do it by watching the movie, just because, you know, it is kind of a little bit of a murder mystery sort of book, and I do know how it was resolved and what happened. So I don't think there's very much appeal in rereading it for me since that mystery has already been solved. So I would rather watch it watch the movie than reread the book. The next two books I'm pretty sure were on my Goodreads unhaul, but it is we've got Within the Hollow Crown by Margaret Campbell Barnes and Innocent Traitor by Alison Weir. These are two books that follow along the Tudor timeline, and I just decided that I want to get through all the Philippa Gregory books and the Plantagenet and Tudor series before I get into that same time period by other authors and their different stories. So for right now, it just doesn't make sense to have these books on my shelves any longer, and so I do want to unhaul them, but they may come back to me at some point. Who knows? And then the next book is a book that I read. Actually, the next couple of books are books that I've read. But we've got Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. I read this, I think, for the Christmas at Hogwarts readathon. I read it in December, and it was all right, but I think I like the movie better than the novel. I think the story translates a lot better as a movie than it does reading. You're basically reading Bridget's diary entries, and this probably takes place back in like the 90s or something. Yeah, the copyright on this is 96. So just like how women saw themselves and like the dieting and just not very good things they did for their body, I don't think is great to read, especially if you do struggle with your body image already. But I really like Renee Zellweger, and so I think the movie's fun. I just don't really care for the book as much. I also read this past year 172 Hours on the Moon by Johan Harstad. I think I listened to this book. Yeah, I think I started reading the physical format and then I listened to it the rest of the way. And this was okay. It's kind of like a sci-fi thriller, maybe. Basically these three teens get selected to go on the next mission to the moon, and the mission ends up being not what they anticipated it to be, and these weird things start happening, and it's a little scary, like kind of really scary, and it was okay, but it kind of, again, Actually, this one I liked a lot less than The Lovely Bones, but just again, it's one of those books where I already know what the mystery was, so it's not, and I don't really care to go read through it again and pick out details that I may have missed because I didn't like the story enough to where I just want to pass it on to someone else who might like it a little better than I did. The next book is a new release from 2018, and I had really high hopes for it, and I debated on keeping it basically just because of the cover, and that is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. But this book did not meet my expectations. It's kind of a grim, dark fairy tale retelling, and not retelling, but it's got like grim, dark fairy tales in it. And it's about this girl, Alice, who has to save her mom from the Hazelwood. And the Hazelwood is this world, more or less, that her grandma kind of created in writing. There's lots of bad stories in it, and they kind of come into our world and try to mess things up a little bit. I really did not like Alice. I thought she was such an unlikable character. There was no point in the story where my mind changed about her. I just did not like her at all. I basically didn't like the beginning, I don't know, probably 2/3 of the story. There were maybe like 5 chapters when I was really into the story and I really liked it, and it was exactly what I wanted from the story. And then the ending was just so predictable. So I mean, there wasn't enough of it for me to like. But I am going to pass this on to one of my friends because I think she might enjoy the story. At least it'll be a fun read, and she can decide whether she wants to keep it or not. Maybe she will just because of the cover. Maybe she'll actually like the story. I hope she does. It just wasn't for me. And then the next book that I think I'm going to pass on to her as well is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. This is the Alcrate exclusive cover, so I think the people are reversed or something like that. It also has a book plate inside. And this book is a contemporary that I read at the kind of beginning of the year about this webcomic writer and illustrator, Eliza, and this new boy who comes to her school named Wallace. Yeah. And he writes fan fiction about her story. So she kind of keeps it a secret. I think this deals with like OCD or social anxiety or something like that. And it was all right, but just wasn't really, it's not a book that I really want to reread again. I think someone else might benefit from the story a little bit more and would probably enjoy it and want to keep it more. So it's a book that I just want to give back out to the world. So there's that one. And then I also read another book that came out this year, which was a debut novel for Emily X. Arpan, and it's The Astonishing Color of After. This one I'm definitely giving to my friend. I really enjoy magical realism, but again, this kind of had a main character that I didn't really care for too much. I know she was struggling a lot with the passing of her mom, but she kind of didn't treat people very well sometimes, and it was not fun to read, I guess. This was a book I started the physical format of, and then I finished the audiobook of. But I think it does have a good story. I think it'll probably be a little bit more impactful to somebody who has circumstances a little closer to Lee than I do. It's a gorgeous cover, though, and I think it could be a beautiful story for someone who might connect with it a little better than I did. So there's that. A book I did not read that I got for free from a friend, and I basically only decided to pick it up because of the author, is Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling. And I think this is kind of, I don't think this is part of her, The Cuckoo's Calling, whatever that series is, because, I mean, that series she writes under Robert Galbraith instead of J.K. Rowling. But this is also kind of a little bit of a mystery. And, I mean, if you can't tell, mysteries aren't really my favorites. I don't remember what it was about the synopsis that even made me want to pick it up to begin with, but it's just not a book I'm interested in reading. I think for me, J.K. Rowling is just gonna forever be an author favorite because of Harry Potter, and I don't really think I'm interested in any of her other stuff. Maybe I will be one day, but it kind of has to get away from that mystery, detective-y, thriller sort of genre for me to even want to consider picking it up. And then another book that I did read this year, I think I did also read it on audiobook. Another book that I listened to on audio was All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, or Doerr. I can never remember how to pronounce his last name. I actually picked up this copy from my library sale, and so I think it was only $1. But just kind of thinking back on it, I didn't really enjoy this story as much as I had hoped I would. It follows, I think, Liesel, or no, her name is Marie Loire. I can't speak French. I can't pronounce French names. But she is basically, we start off with her story when she's 6 and in France. And then we also follow the story of Werner, who is an orphan growing up in Germany. And the chapters alternate between Marie Loire and Werner's points of views. And eventually their stories do intersect. It was cute, but a very romanticized story of the World War II time period. And I just don't think I'm going to reread it. I don't know. It was okay, but I think I also read this at a bad time. I did read it right after reading Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand, and that gave me such intense feelings about the time period. And then reading this and it just falling a little flat for me, I think was a big part of it. But this is a story that I do think a lot of people would enjoy. So I am going to see if one of the girls that I work with wants to pick this up, or if not, I will just donate it to my used bookstore or even back to my library. I'm not entirely sure yet. And the last book I have, which I also picked up from the library, is The Tea Rose by Jennifer Donnelly. This is a book you might have seen on my Goodreads TBR unhaul, but this was like 100% a cover buy for me, and I really like the title. But it's another kind of mystery, and like we've established, I don't really like mysteries. I think it takes place in East London in 1888. And it follows a lady named Fiona Finnegan who works in a tea factory. I think she's in love with this boy named Joe Bristow, and maybe something gets in the way of them. I'm not entirely sure. It's just not a book that I really want to read. anytime soon. I'm sure as I grow older, my taste will change, and maybe this will be something I want to pick up later in life. But for right now, I think someone else will enjoy this a lot more than I do. So that is it for my unhaul. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 books, which I think is pretty good. Made a bit of room on my shelves to bring in those books that I really am looking forward to reading in 2019 and in probably the next couple of years after that. So let me know if you've read any of these books and if you had differing opinions on them. I would love to know what you loved about them, and I hope that they find really nice homes with people who appreciate the stories a little or a lot more than I did. So I will chat with you down in the comments until my next video. Bye!